All right, guys, I hate to do it. It's not something I do a lot, but I give up, all right? I really liked a couple of things about this machine. I really do. There's some good characteristics, some good qualities. I have spent the past 2 days working with this machine, trying to get some of the bugs out of it, hoping that I could get it to where this could be my new CO2 machine. But today, I've come to the conclusion that I'm just giving up. I'm done with it, walking away. All right, this is not a crack at Monport, the company, okay? They make some good products. I've got a couple of other machines that I've had that were theirs. They make some good products. This, however, has not been one of them at this point. The machine had several things. I'm gonna turn it off. I got it powered on with the lights on because it just looks cooler with all the lights on. But we're gonna power that off so you guys can hear me. The machine has potential. The chassis I like, but I'm gonna go through some of the list of grievances that I have with this machine, most of which I have been able to fix with a little DIY, 3D printing, you know, a little knowledge of electronics. I've been able to fix most of the issues with this machine, but there's a couple that I can't do anything with, and it's because the controller is just not working with me. So there we are. All right, so as you saw in my previous video, the air assist on the machine had a really big exit pupil on the nozzle. So therefore, the little pump, which I took out, I have removed the pump and I swapped it over to shop air. This is the pump that was in there. Basically, it's the same pump as comes with a lot of the other machines. It's like a little aquarium pump. Most of the time, these guys work pretty well. In this situation, they had a really large, probably 1/2 inch diameter hose coming off of this guy. And then from there, it split out and went to their CO2 air flame suppression system that's supposed to put out flames that you have to disable because it throws alarms in their software. So what was happening was this pump just could not provide enough air, and especially early in the engrave, because the little pump's trying to fill up all this volume of hoses with air before it can actually build up pressure. So within the first 30 seconds or so, there was really a good probability that you were going to have a flame. After that, the pressure would build up in that line and you would start getting a little bit of positive pressure coming out the nozzle. Well, I took that guy out, replaced it with a relay, and I'll drop you some photos and stuff as we go. Replaced it with a relay, just like I do with my other machines. I've got my AtomStack X40 and my AtomStack A70. Both of those guys run on shop air, relay assisted. It works great. So what that enabled me to do by using shop air and being able to regulate it with the regulator that I put on the front of the machine over here, and you can see the regulator right over there on the machine. I'll try to get you a little better video with that. So I put this regulator right here, did a little engineering, got it on there, got it cleaned up best I could for aftermarket. Even got me a little connection right here to where I can just quick connect this and take it loose. Got that installed. That works perfect. The machine is actually cutting really, really well now because of that. As you can see, there was a little bit of cosmetic changes have been made to the machine. And I got it to where the air assist works really well. Another problem that I had was right here. There was a kink in the air line going from there into the module. But I cut their hard line that they were using here. I cut it and I added a more flexible line here so I can make this turn and not have it pinch itself. And so I fixed that problem. The air assist is working great. Now, the other issue that I was having was that the honeycomb would just slide around. And it's still not as sturdy as I would like for it to be. But what I did is I came in and I created these little 3D printed parts right here to kind of space this thing out and act as bearings, enabling me to slide the honeycomb in and out and it maintain clearance. So the honeycomb can't go that way anymore, because what was happening was the honeycomb was sliding back and forth like this, and it was causing some variations, especially on high speeds. So now the honeycomb doesn't rock back and forth, so that fixed that issue. It can still slide this way pretty easy, but the momentum of the machine's going typically left to right. So push that forward, and then basically when you close this door kind of holds it in place. So if you wanted, you could, you know, come up with a closure for this, and that would hold this in place. Because if I can get let me get my hand free, and I'll show you here. So if you hold this door closed, that doesn't let this honeycomb move very much. So you could put a locking mechanism on this door and fix that problem. One of the other things that I had was this exhaust fan, totally inadequate. It was not doing a good job of getting the smoke out of the machine. So I just hooked it up into my assist pump over here, and that fixed that problem. And it was also drawing a lot of air through here, and it was just going through this crack and then straight out the exhaust over there. So I taped this up with some painter's tape around this pass through here, got that sealed up. Now I'm pulling a little more air through here, and I'm pulling a little bit through the front here, but what that does is the air coming in through the front actually does me a favor and acts like you know, a river basically of air pulling that smoke towards the back. So that's working out pretty well. But those issues were the two biggest issues with the honeycomb and the air assist, and I got those resolved, guys. But their software is still giving me fits, and I'm having some issues. So give me just a second. I'm going to show you some cuts that we've did right here and go over the results. And I really hate it because I have spent the past 2 days modifying and creating parts and everything for it. But this thing, until something changes, is fixing to get put in storage. I can't keep putting man hours into it. All right, guys, like I said, after all of my upgrades and the fixes that I did to the machine, it was cutting really well. Man, I was cutting stuff, and it was doing as good or better than any machine I've had, cutting-wise. The only problem that I was seeing was occasionally in Lightburn, it would just freeze. Like the machine would just freeze up, it would just sit there. The laser, the good news is the laser did deactivate, so there wasn't a fire risk at that point, but it would just freeze up. Also, something else that I found out after hooking up my air assist to the relay and all of that is that in Lightburn, this machine communicates with Lightburn for the air assist through the M8 trigger, which is on most modern lasers now have an M8 trigger that will, you know, activate the air assist or whatnot. And that's great. It works great. Most of these other machines in my shop have that same capability, but with this machine, the M8 also controlled the exhaust fan. So that was the reason I ended up having to connect to my other exhaust, is because on layers where I didn't want to run air assist for engraving, trying to do fine, like detailed engraving, when I turned off air assist on that layer, it would run air assist doing the cut, and then when it came to the engraves and stuff, it wouldn't. So, and usually what I do is I do the engrave first. On an engrave and cut, I'll do the engrave first to make sure nothing drops out of focus or anything, and then I'll do the cut. So what I was winding up with is when the job would start, the fan wouldn't come on at all, and it would just sit there and just fill up with smoke. And of course, that's getting lenses are getting dirty and all that. And so it took me a few minutes to realize that once it got past the engrave into the cut, that's when the fan would actually cut on. And so then it hit me. Whatever's triggering the air assist is triggering the fan also. I've tried to overcome that, but I can't. That's something that is built into the machine. I don't want to totally overhaul the wiring as far as the fan. Yes, I could set the fan so that it comes on when you turn the machine on, but then it's going to just sit there and run all the time, and who wants that, right? So what I wound up doing was I put it on my other exhaust fan, and in essence, I just wound up using this fan as an assist fan when doing cutting. The rest of the time, my secondary output over here was actually doing the exhausting for the machine. So you see where I'm going. I fixed one issue and another one pops up. So the air assist issue was resolved. I got the honeycomb issue resolved with some 3D printed parts, and then came the whole fan thing. And I was able to resolve that by using, you know, secondary exhaust. So at this point, I'm like, okay, I've got it working. You know, this is actually a viable machine. I can do stuff with it now. You know, it's not just sitting here. So, because I do like the size of the work area there, it looks clean. I like the look of it. So I was like, okay, so, you know, I'm going to try to use the camera in Lightburn. And I was able, and I was successful in taking the camera, unplugging it from the main board. It's inside here. Unplugging it from the main board. I created me an exit hole out of the machine, connected the camera to a USB extension, and I am able to use the built-in camera with Lightburn. I calibrated it. It works. But with Lightburn, I was having so many issues with the machine becoming unresponsive. And I don't know if it had to do with the camera being disconnected from the board or what, but the machine just kept being unresponsive and hanging up in Lightburn to the point to where I'm like, it's doing me no good to use Lightburn if the machine doesn't work. So I put the camera back the way that it was from the factory and went back to the Monport software. Calibrated it. The camera is relatively accurate. It is very usable in the Monport software, but their software is still very, very basic. There's no way to do power and speed tests in their software that I have found, and they have not, even though I've asked, they haven't told me that there is. I can't even save custom settings in there for materials and stuff that I've figured out how to do unless it's hidden somewhere. So the software is very, very limiting. And so I was like, you know what, I'll just use their software, very basic. I'll just import graphics. You know, I'll use other ways of coming up with speed and power tests. I'll work through it, you know, because I am not a quitter. I don't like quitting. And so I'm coming up with these different ways of, I'm going to be able to use this machine. I was getting a little excited. So I started doing some testing because, you know, before I take and put this machine on my main line, I have to have faith in the machine is going to work when I need it to work, because if I'm doing jobs with it, it has to work. I also have to be confident that every piece of material I put into that machine is going to become the project that I intend. Of course, I'm going to make mistakes sometimes, forget to set the focus, whatever the case may be. Those things happen sometimes. I'm okay with those. I can get past those. But machine errors, I do not need. I do not need a machine that is going to be destroying my blanks because of a malfunction. I can deal with diode machines that are really, really slow as long as they're consistent. I want consistency. So I was like, all right, let's do some consistency tests, quality of engraved tests. Let's run it through the paces. Now that I have modified it and come up with my practical version of it, let's run it through the paces. So we're going to take my logo and I'm going to engrave it using their software. And so I did this. And I know what you're thinking. That's a pretty good looking engrave. It's not bad. And it's not. It's not bad at all. This design turned out pretty decent. But if you look really, really close, the design has actually shifted, like the cut around the design is shifted down and to the right ever so slightly. You can barely see it, and it may be impossible to see in the camera. So I was like, oh man, that's terrible. So I went back and I looked at the machine and in the software, and I had it centered. Everything was centered the way it was supposed to be. So this shift, I felt like, was in the machine and not in the software. So how I decided to test that out was I swapped it over to Lightburn. Even though I didn't have a camera, I can still run the machine in Lightburn. And so I created the same graphics, same dimensions, same everything in Lightburn. The only thing that I did do in Lightburn, which you can't do in InDesign, is I did run the LPI up a little bit. Because as you can see, this was very grainy. I know it's a 70 watt, I get that, but it was very grainy. So I wanted to try to get a little more clarity to the engrave. And so I did the exact same settings in Lightburn. Only difference is I turned the LPI up to 200. The engrave itself looks better than what it did in InDesign. So I was really happy with that. But if you'll notice and look real careful, I've still got that same shift. There's still a shift between the engrave and the cut. So, you know, I'm no lead engineer or anything, but if I'm running the same machine, same design, the design centered up in the software on both softwares, and I'm getting the same result, which is an error, which means it's shifting, the cut is shifting down and to the right from the engrave. Somewhere I'm getting a little slop in the machine, and that head is moving over to the right a little bit and down and getting out of alignment. So I was like, well, you know, that the engrave did turn out better. So as far as quality of engrave, being able to increase the LPI did help the machine make a better looking engrave. The cuts cut really good. Air assist worked like a champ. Of course, it should. I put a relay in there and I'm running about 10 PSI to the machine. So it should do better. So then I was like, okay, well, maybe it's, you know, because I do use diodes a lot. Maybe I'm just used to seeing a 40-watt diode. So I grabbed the old X-Tool P2 and I run the same job and used the same graphic. It's an SVG file that I created. It doesn't have that shift. This one's perfectly centered. It doesn't have that shift. It's got a nice brown engrave. It looked really good. I was actually shocked that the engrave was as brown as it was, being it was a CO2 machine, but turned out good. Same engrave. So then I was like, well, that's not fair. I should, you know, I should try to get a 70 watt. So, you know, I got the Atom Stack A70, which is a diode, but it's still a 70 watt. And I run it in Lightburn on the A70. Same settings as I used in Lightburn for the Mega. And got an outstanding result. And the logo is actually centered in the graphic. So at this point, I'm really frustrated because, like I said, I've spent about the past 2 days working on this, rewiring the air assist, replacing hoses, fixing the 3D designing the pieces for the honeycomb, installing them, you know, working out all the bugs. So this morning I come out here, these tests I did yesterday. This morning I come out here and I'm like, okay, I finished up. I did my custom engraving on the cover and all those things. And I'm like, man, surely I can just, you know, it's not as good a quality of an engrave, but cutting is doing a really good job on cutting. Maybe I can just use it for cutting. So I was like, well, let me run the test one last time. And guys, I'm going to throw a little video over here of it running the engrave. And then right near the bottom, as I'm going, you know what, that's not a bad engrave. It's not bad at all. All of a sudden, for some reason, the machine moves 1.5 to 2 inches left and engraves the bottom part of the design totally outside of the cut area. But then it goes, because you would think, okay, if it's mechanical at this point, when this thing's going back and forth, if it's a mechanical failure that led this engrave, part of this engrave to again end up engraved like over here, if that's a mechanical failure, then what should happen is that the cut should line up with the remainder of that engrave. Because if it's mechanical failure, the machine still thinks it's where it's supposed to be. It's just going to continue to do what it did. But it didn't. After it finished the engrave, it cut out the design perfectly. Like, yes, it's still got that little bit of shift. So this side's a little closer than this side because it does that like 0.5 millimeter down to the left or down to the right. It does like a 0.5 millimeter down to the right shift between layers, but it wasn't 2 inches off. Like, this is the piece of wood that I cut it from. And like I told you guys, I do the engrave first and then I do the cut. So it was engraving here, it jumped over here, did this little bit, and then jumped back over here and cut it out. So not a mechanical failure. So after all of my testing, everything that I have done, the conclusion that I have came to is that the controller in this machine or the software installed upon it, one of the two, is the problem. I can't fix that, okay? Yes, I could technically take it apart, install a whole new controller and reinvent the machine, but who's going to do that? How many of you guys would knowingly do that? So that's where I'm at, guys. I'm throwing in the towel. I am done. I've got my X-Tool P2. I've got my OnTech Polar Plus in the shop. I have CO2 machines that I can use. The bed space isn't as big. But you know what? So far, this thing has been a headache. So I'm done. I am absolutely done with this machine, guys. All right, guys, I really hate having to say this much negativity about one machine. I am a half full kind of guy, okay? I try to find the bright side to things because in my experience running through life, always looking at the downside, it's not real pleasing. But I have done all I can do. I've put the work into this machine that I can. I have went above and beyond to try to get a good review of this machine. But I'm not going to tell you something that is not true. And the truth is, I like the build. I think they had a really good product to an extent. But the machine has software issues with the Monport software. It's not ready yet. There's just too many features that are missing. The controller seems to be very basic, like too basic. One thing that I've noticed too is even in Lightburn, when it's engraving, it engraves and then stops, like it's trying to, like it's listening for directions, and then it'll start back engraving. So I think they're going to have to overhaul the controller as well as finish building out the software before this is a viable machine. I've been seeing, and guys, this is a little weird, but I've been seeing some comments on my channel, on my videos. There'll probably be some on this video that I strongly believe are robots or spam or AI or something that are praising this machine, saying how great it is and how good of a job that it has done. Me personally, I don't think those are real people. Secondly, if it is Monport doing that, I think that is dirty. I don't think we should do that. If there's a problem with the product, fix it, and just take care of it. But yeah, so I hated to make the video, guys, but they keep using clips of my video in advertisement. So I wanted to make sure that, my true thoughts of the machine are out there in case, you see a little clip of me saying I like the machine in some ways. You know what I mean? Because they'll cut, I like the machine in some ways. Will be over there on the edit room floor or whatever. But like I said, it has good features. Even after my awesome air assist upgrade and my honeycomb redo, still not happy with the results I'm getting. And I am picky, I'll agree, but I'm still not happy with it. But as far as how to go about doing the air assist upgrade, it's very similar to the same way as you do the Atom Stack or the X40 as far as the electronics and the parts needed. I do have the relay as well as the water separators and all that. Those have been on my Amazon shop for years. So even if you don't have this machine, if you have another machine that you're wanting to convert, those parts typically are going to be generic for all the machines. But I don't want to redo that video because Brett over at Brett's Laser Garage, I think that's what he calls it, Brett did a video on him converting his Monport and putting the air assist on there. So if you have one of these things and you're trying to just make it work and you want to do that, then I'll drop a link to Brett's video so you can go check out how he did it. It's a simple process. There's a couple of wires and a couple of hoses. That's pretty much it. I did, however, I have a bracket, and I don't want to take one out of my machine, but I have a little bracket that I've made that you can take double-sided tape, and there's a video of it or pictures of it right here. Take double-sided tape and basically you mount it inside the machine, snap the relay in there, hit it with a zip tie, and it's mounted. If you ever do need to take it out to replace it or whatever the case may be, it's clip the zip tie, pop it out, and put another one in. It keeps it from bouncing around and getting shucked back and forth and all that good stuff. So it's just a 3D print file, and it works for me. But anyway, guys, there it is. This is the last you will see of this guy in the shack. It is fixing to be put into storage. It is taking up valuable space, and I'm afraid to use it on jobs. I'm just going to be honest with you. I can't risk my blanks. I don't trust it. It's not doing as good a job as the other machines, so it has no place on the main line here at the shack. So, sorry, Monport. Maybe next time. But until next time, guys, if you hadn't already, hit the subscribe button for honest, sincere content about laser engravers, CNCs, and pretty much anything pertaining to working in your shop. So, there you have it. Till next time, be safe and have a good day.